Hello and welcome to Gardener's World, where today we celebrate the arrival of spring in all its glory.
Flower show season is upon us and it starts here at RHS Malvern Spring Festival.
The sun, Arit! The sun is shining, can you believe it?
On my face, Joe.
It's
on
beautiful,
my face.
isn't it? I think we deserve it though.
Oh, it's been miserable, but forget about that.
Yeah.
We're here now, enjoying the sunshine.
I've got a new garden, so
Right.
I'm going to be looking for lots of plants to fill it with.
Okay, but I was really hoping that you'd come and dance with me in the disco polytunnel.
Well, there's an offer. I've never even heard of disco polytunnel. I was thinking more floral marquee.
Well, I know you would, but anyway, well, we'll come to that. Anyway, coming up on today's show, we'll discover this season's must-have plants and flowers.
For those whose green space is mainly inside, there's a huge new houseplant feature here celebrating a world of indoor greenery.
We'll meet the nursery owners hoping to inspire others with their pollinator-friendly displays of peat-free perennials.
We want visitors that see our stand to go away thinking that you can grow sustainably and help your planet with extreme ease.
And there's a rainbow of colour as Rachel surrounds herself in tulips.
To me, I kind of think food, because I'm thinking like crushed raspberries and custard maybe, these colours along the front.
This year, the RHS Malvern Spring Festival, held in association with My Pension Expert, focuses on the power of gardening to change lives, transform communities and combat the effects of climate change. There are 8 show gardens packed full of ideas, a glittering feature garden, more than 50 of the UK's top nurseries and growers, and school gardens to inspire the next generation. Well, I'm looking forward to having a really good look around myself later, but first of all, let's see what Joe's found in the floral marquee.
Well, what a welcome. The first thing you see is this display of spring bulbs, mainly tulips. The colour is incredible. Now this is the time to see them, pick your favourites, think about combinations together. Don't forget to write them down and then plant them in the autumn. Look at that, tulip orange balloon, it's enormous. Some people don't like orange, I love it. This is the Hare Spring Cottage Plant exhibit and they hold a national collection of Camassia. Now Camassia seem to be everywhere at the moment and for good reason, because they're such a good plant, they're easy to grow. And if you've got wet soil, and a lot of us had a very wet winter, then you can grow Camassias in grass and they'll naturalise and spread. And here they're displayed in these tin bars, so you can also grow them in containers. But it's all about the soil, making sure that there's a loamy base to the soil and it'll hold moisture, it won't dry out and keep them well watered. But I think they're brilliant. And this exhibit just is exquisite, I love it. Wow, I'm glad I brought my sunglasses today. This is a serious colour combination, isn't it? I mean, we've got the blood orange of this azalea next to the lipstick pink of the other one. That is a bit too much for me to put together, but azaleas I've recently planted on a job and they are perhaps a little bit out of fashion. Maybe this is part of their comeback. I've planted them on a bank in a sort of straight line, and after flowering I'm going to clip them back and almost semi-topiarize them like an evergreen hedge, and then this time next year they will be covered in flowers again, and you just can't beat them at this time of year for colour. You've got slightly woodlandy conditions, acidic soil that will hold a bit of moisture, maybe underneath the trees like these maples, they will sing out. Some people love crazy combinations like this, and if you do, go for it. There's that lipstick pink again. This time a bougainvillea. Lovely. Ah, you've got your sunglasses on as well. You need them.
I know, it's beautiful.
Right, well, it looks like you all want to buy geums. I don't know where Roger is. Beautiful plants, aren't they? I mean, I don't quite know how to use this either. Where is he? There's people just queuing up here trying to buy his plants. Roger! Hello. So Roger, you've got this really interesting collection of colours.
Yep.
You're breeding them.
Well, I'm breeding them, but I get a lot from self-seed as well.
They're very popular at the moment.
They're very popular.
Is that down to you?
Well, I hope so, yeah. I'd like to think it is, yeah. Well, because they're just so easy and they're pretty indestructible, really. They're rabbit-proof, slug-proof, deer-proof. Yeah, yeah, and they'll go just about anywhere that's not hot and dry.
You haven't said they're beautiful. Once.
Well, yes, well, they're beautiful. Well, yes, well, that goes without saying, doesn't it? Yeah. It's the foliage as much as anything as well that attracts me.
And for wildlife, the bees?
Yeah, the bees love them, yeah.
Why geums for you?
It's the first plant I ever bought, Borisii.
Geum borisii,
Aye.
first plant.
That'd be about 30, somewhere around there.
Okay, so just last year then?
Well, I wish it was.
I better leave you because you've got a lot to sell.
Yeah.
They're queuing up for them. Lovely to meet you,
Nice,
Roger.
lovely to meet you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
As borrowed landscapes go, Joe, I have to say that Malvern backdrop is stunning.
It's a beautiful setting. I do love it here.
Yeah.
It's gorgeous.
It's great, and we've also got the gardens to look at as well. I mean, look at this.
Yeah, an eclectic mix, isn't it? Certainly.
If you look over there, look at those poppies and those geums together. I love that orange and pink together because normally it's sort of springtime. People do the blues and the yellows and the whites, but that just gives a little bit of zing.
There's also a combination over here. Now you've got Iris sibirica,
Yeah.
which is a moisture-loving iris, and also Iris germanica, which is a drought-loving iris. But actually they're in the same bed. You might think that's a mistake. I've inherited exactly that combination, and they're both thriving. So, rules are there, but they can be broken. As long as there's good drainage and a little bit of moisture, they'll both do well.
And I think that's something we're going to have to all be doing, isn't it? Sort of experimenting a little bit more because we've got this change of wet weather and dry weather. But you know what? If it can happen in your garden, it can happen anywhere.
Well, I inherited it, but I'd like to take a lot of credit, obviously.
So you. Come on, let's go and look at some more.
Ah, taste of the Cotswolds. It's lovely. I love this design. It's got different levels. The stonework is impeccable.
I know, that is real quality craftsmanship there, Joe. But then, oh, this is nice, isn't it? Coming down into the garden.
Yeah, like the dappled shade underneath the trees. I love the lime green foliage that's picked up through the Pachysandra, the Tiarella, some of the ferns, the euphorbias and the foxglove. It just lightens the whole composition up rather than just a mid-green.
Yeah, it's really lovely. I think that confidence comes through on the texture as well of the plant. So you've got lamium up against anamanthale, up against the thalictrum. So those different leaf shapes all add into the vibrancy of the garden.
And the U-balls, I think, work really well. In the old days, you'd have sort of two either side of the path, very formal, symmetrical layout. But here, they've used them informally, just dotting them through various sizes. It adds a really lovely rhythm, bit of evergreen structure to the garden for everything else to hang on.
And it's really nice because that is a contrast then to this very informal area, the meadow and this orchard. It's really lovely.
Yeah, it works brilliantly, doesn't it? And it's comfy, isn't it?
Oh, God.
I mean, I've got one too many scatter cushions, I'll be honest
Oh,
with
well,
you.
I'll take one of those from you then.
Go on,
oh,
you have that one.
Thanks very much. Now, this is quite different again, Joe, because walk on here and immediately it's that simplicity of colour palette, isn't it? It's blue, green, white, but quite a calming feel to it.
It's a tapestry of a lot of ground cover planting, isn't it? We've got the ferns, the Gallium odoratum, the Aquilegia, the Brunnera.
Yeah.
And I like the block planting. And this is how I plant as well, so underneath a tree. And it reduces maintenance because you can sort of cut back those blocks and they all suppress weeds as well.
Which is a really, really good tip. But what I have to say that I really like, especially as you come through the site, is all of these mounds. because that really changes the topography of the garden, gives it a different feel. And I think if it had been flat, we wouldn't really be probably enjoying it in the same way. I think it really does work.
Yeah, definitely. And it feels a bit wilder,
Yeah.
somehow.
And especially if you've got a very boggy garden, these mounds enable you to put plants on there that can have a bit more drainage, because obviously the water will run off. If you've got flooding that occurs, you can put these mounds in and still have some plants in there that you wouldn't normally grow.
Yeah.
There are so many amazing plants here from some of the best growers in the country. A few weeks ago, we went and spent the day with Nick and Hannah Wade on their Barnstable nursery as they prepared for their Malvern debut.
We got together quite quickly, didn't we? About a year, I suppose, and we were married.
From a packet of seeds, we just basically started a business, absolutely no money at all.
Or experience.
Or experience.
Literally, excuse the pun, grew from there.
The thing that's really got us through the really hard times is each other. My name's Nick.
And I'm Hannah, and we run Gardener's Delight Nursery, a 5-acre site in North Devon.
We grow a very broad range of plants. We're located very close to the Atlantic coast. We get fairly high winds throughout the winter. We have a fairly high saturation of salt in the air. So all our plants are grown to be tough. They're very hardy.
We've been growing together for 30 years, and this will be our first time displaying at Malvern.
The setup we're going to do, we're mocking it up already.
Is that all right?
So we're up to 3 metres there, so we're about right.
A little bit this way to make the pathways narrower as well. We've got 3 weeks left before Malvern.
It's been a fairly dark winter, so things are a little bit behind.
Every morning we get up really early and we go and look at them. Oh, they haven't changed much from yesterday, and think, will they be ready?
There's only 12 hours in a day now. It doesn't feel like 24.
And unfortunately, only 7 days in a week. We've always wanted an extra day.
Yeah.
There's more anxiety in it than I ever thought there would be. Yes. Yeah. You're very good, though.
I think you're more anxious than me, aren't you?
I always am. You need to put a pink geum in the front there.
And I think you need to put an orange in the front of that one there.
OK.
The orange and the maroon.
Well, we'll place it and see what it looks like, shall we? We want visitors that see our stand to go away thinking that you can grow sustainably and help your planet with extreme ease. And this is how you do it. I'm going to make up a planter with the peat-free compost, and I'm going to start at the back with the Anthriscus ravenswing, which has lovely umbel flowers that the bees and pollinators can land on. Next, the Thalictrum black stockings to give good height. Great early season flowers. This one is Geum Tempo Rose. Geums are very hardy for the novice gardener and great again for the pollinators. Repeat flowering, so a win-win. Even if you only have 1 pot, you can put in 5 plants that the solitary bees, the honeybees, the hoverflies, the butterflies, they will all come to, and you can have your own little paradise for the pollinators. And it looks amazing.
We've been pesticide-free for at least 5 years, and we use integrated pest management, so we use bugs to eat bugs. Here I've got some of the bugs that I really get excited about. This is a little green thing. It looks very much like green fly, but it's not. These are called Microlophus pygmaeus. I'm going to take a plant out of the middle of my crop, place it in there, so as they fly out, they can fly into the canopy of the plants around them. You can do this on a smaller scale in your own garden. These little critters, they're going to go in there, find a whitefly, and munch them. Apart from using the predators, we companion plants, so we put in plants that will attract the pests to them rather than the plant that we're trying to protect. One of the plants we put in is aubergines, because they'll pick up black fly really, really quickly. If you've got tomatoes or cucumbers in a greenhouse, put in some marigolds in your greenhouse. Cures 90% of your problems without you doing anything at all.
It's not just myself and Nick doing the Malvern display. Our daughter, Emma, is heavily involved.
She's very competitive.
I think we must put these Lady Emmas in, don't you?
Got to be Lady Emma in there. We started doing the smaller RHS show at Rosemore Gardens, because that's local to us. We got the Curator's Award, and she said, right, next year, Dad, I'm going to do Malvern. Let's get out there and have a go.
There'll be something she won't like. There'll be something that we haven't done quite right. I don't know what it is, but we'll find out.
We've been trying to do the planters, so I'll show you what we've done and you tell me how wonderful they are.
Okay.
When we arrive at Malvern, we'll be coming from here. Emma's going to be coming from Cardiff.
I like the colours. Yeah, that looks really, really nice.
Works quite well that she's away from it every day, so she's not thinking about it. She's very much coming back, partly as a pair of eyes that the public would come and look at it.
Yeah, I think it's too much pink.
Okay.
Nice pink, but too much.
What do you think of that container? Can you see it?
You're going to still be in that?
She's got a bit of a passion, and she knows that I can be a little bit lazy on detail, and she really is into the detail. It's got to be right. But as a father, you know that.
Dad, your hands over the camera. Hands over the camera, Dad. There we go.
OK. Any other suggestions?
We don't agree with everything that she's saying, and we'll sort of say, no, we've got to do it this way for a reason.
Well, we compromise. I don't think we ever actually back down.
No.
There's a compromise.
Yeah.
See you in 3 weeks.
Love you lots. Bye.
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 See ya.
Bye. Everything's growing nicely. There's a few things we'd like a little bit more on, but we're never happy, are we? The white anthruscus we'd like to have been a little bit bushier, and the astilbes we'd like them to be in their full plume, just because it would fill the gap and really lighten it. I've only got Emma for one day, so we've got to make the most of her while she's here, putting everything together. I think today we'll go with Emma's the brains and I'm the brawn.
Mum and Dad have done a lot of work behind the scenes to get the plants looking this good. I mean, this is one of our first big shows. Going from doing lots of little shows in Devon and around southwest to this is a big change, but they've taken on the challenge really well, and it's paying off, I think. I just wanted to make sure that all the colours linked together and flowed nicely, which I think we've managed to do so far. We've got a small gap at the back and we're just trying to decide what plant to put in it.
What do you want?
Not that.
Dark leaf instead?
Yes. Just goes a little bit better because the euphorbia is bright yellow.
It's very tiring. It's a lot of hours. And we're just getting to that point now where I think we need to stop and have a cup of tea before we plonk anything else in. Thanks for your help.
That's okay.
It's really good. I think we'll do it.
I think we will. We'll smash it.
Yep.
Hannah, Nick, congratulations. This is wonderful.
Thanks very much.
Really, how do
Thank you.
you feel?
Ecstatic.
Ecstatic, we like
Yeah.
that. Why?
Well, we got a silver gilt, our first attempt, so we're really pleased. Just a few little marks off that gold. So there's room for improvement, but we know where to go.
It really sings out your exhibit. You know, the hot colours, the cool colours, how to put plants together. You know, I think it's looking stunning. I mean, especially because you're biological control, you're peat-free, you're paving the way.
Well, we're trying to show how easy it is to be peat-free, but you can get really good results. You know, a silver gilt medal has shown that you can get good results. It's really just making people not too worried about it and taking them back to basics. And if they are worried, we'll show them really easy perennials that will flower all summer that, you know, can give them good results, and they can learn from there.
So what are your top tips for growing peat-free?
Use a good quality peat-free. If you're in containers, use big containers, so you've got a nice big water reserve at the bottom. And top dress, so we use fine wood bark, or you can use coir, you can use a straw mulch, but that will just help stop evaporation. The rest of it should grow quite happily.
Now, where's the boss? I'm calling her the boss.
We all do, yeah.
She's just started teaching, so she's in Cardiff, we're in Devon.
Okay.
So there's been a lot of phone calls.
Yeah.
A lot of
She's got to take some credit for putting it together, I guess.
90% of it is Emma.
Yeah.
Well done, Emma. Well done, Emma.
Yeah.
You're being recognised here.
Only 10% is us growing it.
Yeah, really, I don't quite believe that. So where are you going to go from here?
We're going to pop up to Chelsea, have a look around.
Oh!
And just see maybe next year. Maybe next year.
Well done.
Really.
Congratulations.
Thanks
I'll
very
see you
much.
around, it sounds like.
Yeah,
Okay.
definitely.
Thanks very much.
There are many nurseries here that are growing peat-free and being chemical-free and just generally being more sustainable. And with our summers getting hotter, winters getting wetter, we need to really think about how we can use plants that will not only help the environment but can thrive in this changing climate, particularly in cities where our gardens account for nearly 30% of the green space and provide vital ecosystems. Plants can help the environment in so many ways. For one, they can help reduce air pollution, especially if you plant living boundaries. A simple hedge has the ability to capture pollution, reduce noise and mitigate against flooding, as well as provide shelter and food for our wildlife. If you're considering a hedge, just make sure that you've got a nice mix of deciduous and evergreen so that you've also got structure and cover for in the winter. And hedges provide so many other environmental benefits too. They have the ability to regulate temperature, so provide cooling. They can store carbon, and in fact, an RHS study on urban pollution found that in just 7 days, a 1 metre length of well-managed, dense hedge can mop up the same amount of pollution that a car emits on a 500-mile drive. This garden has been designed to bring some of the environmental issues to our attention, not least this melting iceberg. But the botanical star of the show is just down here. It's moss. It's been on the planet for over 450 million years, so I think it's seen some drastic climate change over its time. The great thing about moss is that it's like a big living sponge. It has the ability to soak up 20 times its weight in water, which means it's able to evaporate that water around its leaves, and therefore it cools the air. Because of this sponge-like system, it also sucks its nutrients that it needs out of the air into its leaves, and whilst doing that, takes out pollutants. So it purifies the air as well. It really is a wonder plant. We often talk about drought-resilient plants, but with all the rainfall lately, it's worth considering a few that can tolerate wetter conditions. Plants such as cornus and sedges and even Zanzidetia really like damp, moist conditions. But take a look at this, our British wild native, the ragged robin. It thrives in damp meadows and looks absolutely glorious. And at this time of year, it's really floriferous and is great for pollinators. So really think about those areas of your garden that need a little bit of extra help when there's damp conditions. There are plenty of plants out there that can still thrive.
I'm just getting some photos of this planting combinations because in my new garden I've inherited a lovely old bluebell wood with lots of native bluebells everywhere. In fact, I found a white one in there the other day, and a little bit of internet searching has told me that A white bluebell pops up roughly 1 in every 10,000 plants. So they're special little things, and I do love that bit of woodland. But I'm also looking for new plants to add into that scheme as well. Things like the white foxglove are lovely here. They're just coming into flower at the moment. There's a Worcestershire, great foliage plant over there. Another interesting combination, pushing the boundaries a little bit, because I do like my greens, are that euphorbia and this tulip. Now that euphorbia is called Miner's Merlot, and the colours pick up exactly on this tulip, Tulip Rembrandt. What a picture. In fact, there you go, I've got one. Now, talking about tulips, we're in South Worcestershire here, but in North Worcestershire, not far from here, is Morton Hall, where they've been experimenting with the artistry of planting tulips. And a couple of weeks ago, Rachel went to find out exactly how they do it.
Spring is a season of such loveliness and promise, whether it's the cherry blossom or the wildflowers and a sea of blue camasias. But I've come here to see a different spring flower.
The relatively young gardens at Morton Hall are designed to encompass garden rooms, each with their own unique character and seasonal delights.
There are gorgeous distractions at every turn, but I'm determined to stay focused.
Each year, head gardener Ollie Johnson and his small team plant around 7,000 tulips, and now is their moment to shine.
Wow. What a spectacle, really beautiful. And of course, the things that really stand out are the tulips. Why are they so important here?
Well, the tulips give you a real bang in the early season, and we specifically choose the later flowering cultivars so that there's a certain predictability to them all flowering together, because this is really the opening night, and we need the curtains to roll back and the characters to already be in place.
7,000 is an awful lot of bulbs to get in the ground. How on earth do you go about planning where they're going to go and then putting them in?
This year we got a drone operator in to take top-down pictures of the beds to make sure our dimensions were correct, and then we anchor ourselves in that plan using the permanent features like the box balls and the roses to figure out where these combinations of 6 tulips go. And then you can use that plan to make sure no one colour or certain tulip is dominating the scene. And then you can also use that plan whilst the tulips are in flower to make alterations.
So methodical, isn't it? Really clever idea to get above it and then have that kind of plan view so you can be really sure about where things are going.
Visualise it, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So what about getting them all in the ground?
The operation itself is military. So we have 2 people who fill up the buckets with the bulbs, and they take them out to Anna, the garden creator, and her partner. One of them has the map, and then Anna places the bulbs on the ground. And then me and one of the other gardeners, we come through, and then we just plant them behind them. And all the bulbs in here in the south garden are planted in the space of a day.
In a day?
In a day,
Not a week?
Yeah, not a week, no, no.
I'm very, very impressed and a little bit intimidated. How have you divided it up in terms of feel and atmosphere?
So here in the south garden, we think of this as our pastel garden. So we use Monet's palette of the softer violets and lilacs and the smokier hues. Things like blue diamond down here, which is a peony flowered, but works really nicely with the multi-headed purple elegance. And they're the same sort of colours and hues, but the different forms work really nicely together.
Also, then you kind of wake the whole thing up. You've got those really acidic, yellowy greens.
The yellows and the greens, they give it a real pop, and then the dark forms, they sew the whole space together.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Effortless, but I know it isn't.
And we come through into the kitchen garden.
And this is completely different, isn't it? Much punchier in terms of colours.
Yeah, so we experiment with the hotter colours in the kitchen garden, and we follow the movement of the sun. So over here on the eastern side, we have sunrise, so the kind of softer end of the bright colours, the pinks and the yellows, and then this lovely orange at the back of Dordogne.
To me, I kind of think food, because I'm thinking like crushed raspberries and custard, maybe, these colours along the front.
Sure, the pinks coming from the amazing Grace, and then the yellow, the custard, as you call it, is the multi-headed Antoinette, which actually fades to that same pink as it ages.
Yes.
So you get this lovely kind of movement in the colour of the flowers.
Beautiful, isn't it? Lovely with the heuchera foliage and so on coming through. And then it seems to me that the colours intensify as you go round the garden.
Yeah, so they get more rich, and the colours are definitely more intense on the western side of the garden for sunset.
It's beautiful, isn't it? Is that ballerina I spot there?
It is, yeah, yeah.
Yes, I love the way that ballerina's growing through that peony. Such a good colour combination.
Yeah, it goes really nicely with the Molly the Witch, and it's filled out really nicely now. And obviously the tulips are filling a lot of space, but once they go, that then becomes a problem, because all of the space then reveals itself. And so we've got a multitude of different salvias that we've been overwintering that we will put into the holes left behind by the tulips, but sticking with the colour themes of sunrise and sunset.
That's fantastic, because you then get that sort of continuity of colour, but it just changes it up a little bit. What about things like pests? I mean, a lot of people have problems with squirrels, for example, picking up bulbs.
Yeah, we have a very high resident grey squirrel population here. And so when we plant our bulbs, we will cover the surface of the soil with a layer of extra hot chili powder. Yes, yeah, and it is extra hot. But the idea with that is that mammals and rodents can taste the chili, but the birds can't. And so we apply that until the shoots of the tulips are up and out of the ground, sort of 2 to 3 inches. And at that point, the squirrels generally leave them alone anyway.
That is a really good tip, actually. So it's not only looks hot, it is hot.
Yeah.
Literally, it's on fire. Obviously here you've got a big space, but if you've got just a few containers, you've still got all that colour, that intensity.
You can use tulips in any size of container, and I'm very much of the mind that you just bung as many in as you possibly can to get as much of an impact as you can.
Definitely, more is more.
Absolutely.
What I really love, actually, about the way they put the tulips together here is they use lots of different shapes. So here, for example, you've got the peony-flowered Uncle Tom, really rich, saturated red and multi-layered with loads of petals, so it's really sumptuous. And then picking up on that rich dark colour is Slawa, or Slava, and that's a mid-season single tulip with a slightly pointed petal. It's really good at being perennial in my garden. It's come back 4 or 5 years in a row. And those slightly pointed tips of the petals, they're picked up and exaggerated in the lily flower tulip behind called Fly Away. And to me, it looks like a bird of paradise, just sort of poised, ready to take flight. So I think it's a great name for it. The other thing is that this is quite a shaded part of the garden. It's quite dark here, but they're absolutely fine because they don't need to stay through the summer and have those bulbs sort of baked in hot weather. So they're fine here and they'll be taken up, and meantime, they illuminate the whole section of the garden. One of the groups of tulips that I've looked at afresh during this visit are these. They're the multi-flowered tulips, and you can see they're on a single stem at the very bottom, and then they split into this, and you get this multiple flower heads, almost like a firework. And I always thought perhaps they weren't terribly elegant, but this one, which is called Purple Elegance, is living up to its name. Tulips, with their extraordinary range of colours and different shapes and forms, really bring the spring garden to life, and I love them. I grow loads of them. But after a visit to a garden like this, I can't help but feel I'm only just beginning to explore all that promise.
It's a great show, isn't it?
Well, I have to say, Joe, seeing colour in the borders, the nurseries, flowers, sunshine, yes, I'm loving it.
I was worried it was all going to be green and we'd be talking about a wonderful green tapestry, you know, throughout the whole programme, but no, there is a lot of colour here.
Yeah, that's great. Still to come on today's programme, we're talking all things houseplants.
We visit an expert who's got loads of tips on how to revive rather than replace ailing plants.
I really want to show people that just because a plant has a brown leaf doesn't mean they're less of a plant. We just need to give them a bit more love.
And we'll explore the huge new feature here at Malvern, the Festival of Houseplants.
We'll have some must-do jobs to keep your veg plot thriving.
And we look at ways to make your garden greener with tips on sustainability.
Oi, that's mine. Cheeky, eh? Now, the show this year is encouraging everybody to get growing, and this is a brilliant area. These are the school gardens. The theme this year is favourite songs and musicals. So here we have Over the Rainbow from The Wizard of Oz. And there's the rainbow painted in, well, mainly foliage with a few flowers. But I think this is my favourite bit over here, proper bit of gardening too. This is Dorothy's Bug Hotel, complete with green roof and, well, the bugs seem to be doing their job, taking out the predators because the Wicked Witch, she's lying under there. Children as young as 3 are involved in some of these gardens. And of course I don't have a favourite at all, but let's just say this one is brilliant, based on The Lion King. We've got a pond underneath the piano with flag iris, great for wildlife. And then we've got the bronze carex, like a lion's mane just coming out of the pot. It looks really good. But my favourite bit here is the cobra made out of a recycled tyre. It's been painted, it's been planted, and it's nestled in to the desert area of this garden. It is just brilliant. Here we have the rock and roll rockery on the octopus's garden. We've got the Beatles Motel behind me, a scooped out guitar. And in here we have a seed library. Look at that, some curly kale. They're giving away seed to encourage other children to get growing. And we all know how important it is to get kids involved in gardening. Now this year at the Chelsea Flower Show, there's a feature garden that is designed by children for children. And the garden designer Harry Holding has helped bring it all together. So I'm particularly looking forward to seeing that.
Well, I have to say that is a beautiful little basket of plants here. So,
thank you.
Did you know what you've bought?
I ain't got a clue.
These are campanula, madam.
Oh, okay. Right,
They are campanula, they're like a sunny border. We'll have a lovely day. Have a lovely time.
I'm interested to know if you were the purchaser or are you the wheels man?
I'm the wheels man.
You're the gopher.
What have we got in here then? You look busy, you've been busy.
Yeah, so we've got a gym. I bought one of these here a couple of years ago, but I lost it.
Oh, right, where'd you lose it? Did you water it?
I did,
Oh,
I did.
good,
There
good.
is a chance I may have dug it out thinking it was a weed in the winter. That's the only problem.
Okay,
But
okay.
yeah, so I like this one. It's the tangerine one. So
Nice.
I thought I'd get one of those again.
Lovely.
You're getting there. You've got to keep the spare hand. You've got to hand over the cash.
I know.
What's the world record for carrying bags?
You're nowhere near it.
No.
You're doing it, I like it. You're sort of doing it stealthily.
Systematically. That's what we
Oh,
do.
system. You've got to be, what's the system? What system have you
Well,
got?
try and get home without spending too much money. That's my system.
That's the system.
Absolutely, yeah.
One thing that people are definitely buying more of these days are houseplants. And the Festival of Houseplants is a brand new, huge feature here at Malvern dedicated to them. Recent research by RHS scientists and the University of Reading looked into the effects that houseplants had on people's psychological well-being. They found that even just a few houseplants can improve our health indoors. They help clean the air by lowering carbon dioxide, getting rid of pollutants and boosting humidity. And having indoor plants at work was found to lower health issues, reduce the number of sick days taken and lower stress levels. And on top of it all, they look good. Lewis is one of the stall holders here. Why do you think houseplants become so popular again?
I think because people's lives has changed in the last few years. A lot more people working from home, and I think people in, especially big cities, they want to kind of bring the outdoors in, and houseplants are a great way of achieving that. I also think that people are learning more about the beneficial side of houseplants, like the effects on mental health, and they look great.
Tell me, what are some of the more popular plants?
The most common requests we get are for plants that are low maintenance. So classics like snake plants are a really popular option, and then anthuriums, which are really stunning. And then when people kind of progress from the snake plant to the anthurium, then maybe they can go for something a bit more kind of impacting like this philodendron. I love it. I love being amongst my plants. It is that feeling of just happiness.
Well, it's a happy spot, so I hope the rest of the show is good for you.
I'm glad you like it.
Houseplants have certainly become more popular, but often they're seen as short-lived or disposable because people don't know how to look after them. But the experts here are full of advice to avoid that. And we caught up with one of them at her home in Hertfordshire.
I am so excited that this year we're going to be bringing the Festival of Houseplants to Malvern Flower Show. It's just so nice that houseplants are going to be seen kind of on a level with outdoor gardening, because really we are gardeners, we just garden indoor instead of outdoor. I'm Sarah Gerard-Jones, also known as the Plant Rescuer, because I rescue houseplants. I scour garden centres, supermarkets, looking for plants that are unwell and bringing them home and reviving them so they don't get thrown away. This is the yucca that I rescued from a local yoga hall. It wasn't living its best life there, let's just say. This is 40-year-old Dracaena. I got a call from a lady who was moving out of her flat in London. This has grown too big for her to take with her. I actively look for plants in skips and things like that. I can't stop myself, I can't help myself. So this is another yucca I confiscated from my gym. It got down to having about 2 leaves on it, and I thought I need to perform an intervention here. And I was very shocked to learn that the manager thought it was fake and had never watered it. I mean, can you imagine? I've given them a pothos in return. So that's sat on their desk now, and I've told them that that does need watering. I've been rescuing plants probably for about 8 years now. Currently in the house there is probably 200 to 300. I rehabilitate them and then I might give them to a charity or to a friend. So they don't always live here, just the very special ones that I'm very fond of stay with me. How my whole journey started was I went to the local DIY shop to get paint, and when I was there I saw members of staff binning orchids that have finished flowering, and I just thought that was really sad that these plants were being binned midway through their life cycle just because they'd lost their flowers. You think about the resources that go into growing those plants, all the energy and the plastic pots and the plants being flown around the world. I really want to show people that just because a plant has a brown leaf doesn't mean they're less of a plant. We just need to give them a bit more love. The first thing I do is remove these sticks because they're not needed. In the wild, orchids are epiphytes, they grow on trees, so they wouldn't normally grow their flower spikes like this. They would normally sort of cascade downwards. Once I've removed the sticks, I have a good look at what's called the nodes. These nodes here are already activating, which means from this point here, we'll grow more flowers. And we're going to cut just above one of these nodes. If your flower spikes are totally dead and dried up and withered, you should cut it off just down here at the base, and then you'll just have to wait for a new flower spike to grow. The best way how to know when to water your orchid is to look at the colour of the roots. When the roots turn a silvery colour, that's your cue to water. When they're green, it means they're hydrated and they don't need any water. So I've just filled this up to the top and I'm going to leave it to soak for about 20 minutes. So you can see all of my orchids are going crazy right now. They're all putting on new flower spikes, every single one of them that I've cut. my favourite plants are cacti and succulents. After a winter spent indoors, the cacti tend to get covered in cobwebs, so I found a really great way to clean them is by using a handheld hoover. I'm so sick of stabbing myself on the spines that this seems like the best solution. Yeah, that looks a bit better, I think. I think something really important for me is carrying on the legacy of a plant that's been cared for many years by somebody who want me to take care of their plants that they can no longer take care of. This is a 120-year-old Cleistocactus straussii that I rescued from an elderly gentleman called Ernest, who very sadly passed away. So I've named this cactus after him. This is Ernie. So these live out all year round because they come from quite a high elevation, so they can withstand cold temperatures down to about -10, which it has been here before in an unheated greenhouse. As long as they're kept totally dry, they will survive. They cover themselves with these spines, which insulates them from the cold and also protects them from getting too hot as well. But I don't advise stroking them because they've got some pretty nasty spines underneath what looks like soft hair. So this is our very tiny bathroom, which is also the recovery centre for a lot of my plants. People often say you shouldn't have cacti in your bathroom, but that's not actually true because jungle cacti come from quite humid rainforests, so they really enjoy being in a bathroom. It's a south-facing window, which would usually burn plants, but actually because it's got the frosted glass, it diffuses the light and ends up being the perfect environment for most species of plants in here. I think a lot of people will buy a plant and put it in their house where they think it looks nice, but actually it's not best for the plant. It needs light to photosynthesize. It's the most important thing you can do. Hey! When thinking about displaying plants, I love playing about with different heights and areas of the room, so not just the floor, but the walls too. And I also love playing with textures, so combining something really soft and delicate like this Hertfordshire here with something a bit more spiky like this Euphorbia. I think this visually works really nicely. Not only do I love rescuing plants, but I also love reusing old containers. So like this spaghetti jar, which I've repurposed for a cutting of Solanum sp. Ecuador. Any glass container that you can close with a lid acts like a terrarium. I bought this glassware from a charity shop for just a few pounds. I'm adding grit just as a drainage layer, and then some free draining potting mix, a spritz of water, some moistened moss. Now I'm taking some Photonia cuttings and adding them into the moss where they will root. Adding the lid will create a humid environment in which they'll thrive. And I think this is better than a bunch of flowers. Nowadays, a garden can be seen as a luxury, particularly for the younger generation, which is why indoor plants are so important and why it's important that we have houseplants represented in such a prominent way at Malvern Flower Show.
Sarah, I can't believe we've gone from a tiny terrarium to a 4-metre structure.
Right? It was quite daunting when I saw the size of it. It's taken a couple of days and a lot of hands, but we've got there.
Well, it looks incredible. So just tell me the story of this planter, because it looks so amazing.
Epiphytes are a popular houseplant, but we just wanted to highlight the fact that in the wild these plants are endangered due to deforestation mainly and climate change. So we use the chopped logs here to signify the deforestation of the rainforests and the plight of these plants. And if we don't adjust our behaviour in the next couple of decades, we could lose many species. So that's why we wanted to bring that to the forefront here in this planter.
Yeah, well, it's such an important message, and I think it's also one that people can at least feel that they can be part of because they can actually buy some of these plants. But I mean, I can see how you've planted it, and you've used sort of moss, in terms of the construction. We just have to be careful about moss, though, don't we?
Yeah, you should always source your moss sustainably, so always check that you're buying it from a reputable source. You can, of course, if you're making a little terrarium or something like that, you can get the moss from your garden, which I've done many times. You just need to make sure that you wash it thoroughly before you put it in the terrarium.
It looks absolutely incredible.
Thank
and
you.
of course here, this is like the first sort of houseplant festival. It's got such a vibe in here. You must be really happy with what's going on.
So excited that this is happening, and like you say, it's got such a great vibe. It's a real community feeling in here, and it's just great that all of the houseplant lovers have got somewhere to come. On this scale, this is like the first, I hope, of many.
Yes, well, I'm sure it will be. And of course, it's the addictive nature, which I'm guessing that brings all of you together.
It's a real club of addicts, yeah, but I feel it's okay to be addicted to houseplants. There's worse things to be addicted to, but yeah, I just feel like you buy one, it goes well, you love that feeling, you buy another, and then all of a sudden you're me and you've got 200.
Well, you keep sharing your passion, and I'm sure people will keep buying houseplants.
Thank you.
So my top tip is around watering terrariums, and you should never water to a schedule. And by that I mean don't water once a week, once a month. Your terrarium only needs watering when it needs watering. And the way to tell is to observe the soil. So if it's lighter in colour, then it's probably going to need a drink. If it's darker in colour, then I would hold off watering. And when you do water, use good quality water like rainwater or bottled water and gently spray the sides. Once that's done, pop your lid back on.
Why are houseplants so addictive? I mean, just look at this. The variation and the variety of plants you can get is unbelievable. This is a begonia, but it's just insane. Look at the spines. They're almost rubbery, and they come up tiny little fluffy red stems, and then they turn into this, and it's just unbelievable. Super easy to keep. We let it go bone dry, loads of light, give it a really good soak when it is dry, and then that's all we do, and it's growing like mad.
So my top tip today is how to increase photosynthesis. Simply find a damp cloth, ideally a microfiber one, and wipe down the excess dust from your leaves. This will allow the chlorophyll to photosynthesize better and enable you to have bigger and better houseplants.
You just can't beat a beautifully laid out veg plot like this, and it's a really good time to do various jobs in your veg garden. Now behind me, look at this, show sweet corn we call this. It's absolutely perfect, way ahead of the game. But you can still sow your seed right now, sow it indoors in pots or little modules, and it'll germinate in a week or two. And the key with sweet corn is to plant it in blocks like this because it's wind pollinated. So basically, if you imagine if there was a single line and the wind blew across, it wouldn't get pollinated necessarily, but by planting in blocks, you are ensuring that pollination. Now, if you're growing potatoes, it's a good time when it's like this to earth up the potato from either side. All you do is just drag the soil and earth it up because the stems will produce more potatoes and make really healthy plants, nice stocky plants too. Now, some very healthy looking carrots over there, and if you grow them in a raised bed or a container, you can avoid the dreaded carrot fly, because the carrot fly can only fly to about 2 foot above ground level. But now is the time for succession sowing. So sow some more now and you'll have a good succession throughout the summer. But you know, this is show veg. It looks immaculate, it's laid out beautifully, but you know what? It doesn't matter what it looks like, it matters what it tastes like.
So I have to say, sustainability has clearly been at the heart of a lot of the show gardens here this year, don't you think?
Definitely, yeah. And I mean, I think it's the way everything's heading. It's a good thing.
I mean, this garden is imagined to be a new build, okay? So new build, what do you get presented with? A lawn, and you're lucky if you get a couple of skinny borders. So I thought it was really nice that the designer was like, no, we can do better than that. Underfoot, there's a trifle of materials, crushed up windscreens, and that kind of acts as the aggregate for drainage. Then instead of the sand layer, you've got crushed recycled bottles. So reusing and recycling materials, but using it in the construction as a sub-base for what we're sitting on now.
I like the boundary, you know, the relief of those sort of little blocks set in, and the shadows on a sunny day like this, it looks great. And they're just offcuts from 4x4 timber posts. And then you've also got these little bird boxes set in that sort of disappear visually. It's very clever.
The fact of the planting in here as well is to increase biodiversity. You know, after a building site of a garden, you want to make sure you're bringing something back in. So I know the designer has really chosen plants that are going to be really friendly for pollinators, which is really key.
As a whole, it works well. There's a large proportion of planting. It's broken up the centre space, dramatic arch behind us. Would you like a new build garden like this?
I'd be very happy with a new build garden. I'd be very happy with my garden like this.
Now, this is a family garden, okay, so it's all about sort of, you know, family getting together, playing together. They also grow together, they eat together. It's a small space packed with edibles.
I like the fact that the children's area is all plant-based, so they can get in amongst it, touching all the leaves, smelling things, tasting things. And of course, you want your children to be able to come out and pick as they go, don't you really?
Yeah, totally. And they've got this amazing greenhouse as well. So, you know, you can spend time in here all through the winter. You can garden whatever the weather's like. And it's packed full of seedlings, edibles, tomatoes.
The fact that it's a small garden with a lot in, there's going to be a lot of ideas for people to take home. For example, this clover lawn, because I think people in small gardens now are concerned about should we have a lawn, should we not. But with this, of course, when it's in flower, great for pollinators and tough as old boots.
Yeah, don't need to mow it at all. There's a lot going on in this garden. You can almost forage in your own garden,
Yeah, I like
you
that
know,
idea.
and find something to eat, you know, all year round, and grow stuff in here. So yeah, it's a great space.
Joe, this garden's got a real modern feel about it, hasn't it? You know, these angular lines and the way that it's laid out. And you could sort of look and think, well, what's this got to do with sustainability, right? But the paving underfoot is concrete that is cement-free. And as well as that, a lot of the paving in the UK is imported. So this sort of way of putting paving down has got a low footprint because it's all been made in the UK. But if you look again at the garden, a lot of it's actually reclaimed. So this metal edging, the water reservoirs, and of course there's this water feature channeling water from the roof of the studio.
Yeah, I really like that actually, because it's sort of like an aqueduct running through the planting, and as the planting grows up and envelops it, but you're harvesting rainwater and keeping it on site as well, and making these water features out of it. But there's the aesthetics of the water as well. You know, listen to the sound. It's very subtle, really lovely little trickle, and then you've got the reflective quality and that little bit of movement as well. So it's adding a lot to this garden in many ways. I think it's great, and I like the planting where it softens these angular lines, and it's really good proportion of planting to paving as well. I mean, let's face it, who doesn't love a rubber duck?
See, I told you you'd get inspiration.
It's brilliant, I finally get to see it. So now I've got to buy geums, camassias and a glitter ball for my garden.
It's going to look great. I'm coming down, you know that, don't you?
Anytime.
Well, that's all we've got time for today, but the RHS Malvern Spring Festival is on until Sunday, so there's still time to come down and see it for yourselves.
Next week we'll be back at Longmeadow with Monty, but from us, now it's goodbye.
Goodbye.
You don't have to have a big plot. Gardener's World, a year in a small garden. Available now. 26,000 seashells in one room. Unusual hidden treasures of the National Trust to restore. Next on BBC Two.